Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Welcome back to this journey through the Tarot de Marseille majors that has been a part of a much bigger series for this year, 2024, for me. And I hope that you're enjoying this journey. And as always, I look forward to your comments at any time. This is not the first time that I have taken a chunk of time to study these cards, and yet I feel like it's giving me an opportunity to reflect upon how I will bring forth some of these more literal meanings into contemporary tarot readings. And so it's a pleasure to guide these discussions, and I look forward to your input. So welcome. Hello, Arya. Namaste. And I have no idea where this wandering discussion may take us on this day. I have several books and decks on the table, and I thought I would start by reading a little bit from Letitia Barbier's book. What lesson should we learn from this card in the context of the major arcana sequence? The answer might be found in a quote attributed to Mahatma Gandhi. Each night when I go to sleep, I die. And the next morning when I wake up, I am reborn. The moon's darkness doesn't appear to us as dramatic as the devil and its tower, because at this point in the story we are meant to understand that death isn't a mere ending, but a transformation. Without the fear of the end, we can easily transition into the nocturnal because we have faith that we'll see the light of day. The moon card speaks about something the wheel of fortune introduced. Our perception of time as a linear continuum is an illusion, an abstraction that doesn't exist in nature, in which everything is cyclical. After we meet death itself in the Arcana 13, our story continues from circles to circles as we wait to be reunited with the cosmic totality. Every night we lose consciousness as we go to sleep, and we do it without fear because we know we will wake up. The moon card is a temporary moment of darkness that we meet casually, understanding from here on that we can trust the dawn will rise again. And so, let's see if I can shift the light on these cards here for you. I don't know if I will put on an overhead light then. Just a beautiful collection of cards in this book. So I felt very off-put when I read or reread the introduction to this book last night. This is the Helen Fairley Cultural History of Tarot. And there are so many juicy nuggets in this book that I will share a couple with you today. In that, when I read an introduction or a section of a book that negates the esoteric of tarot, it makes me wonder. It has me asking a lot of questions, because I know without a doubt that a lot of mystery somehow appears in art that was not consciously intended by the artist. And I have experienced this in discussions with artists of tarot decks. It's such a potent medium. And I believe that anyone who has the skill to paint a beautiful painting, such as any of these that we're going to look at, or wood cut block, or whatever the medium, has a quality within them that is deeply connected to their intuitive self, to their feminine side, call it whatever you want. It's like the artist is an open vessel for messages. And I feel that in reading tarot, we need to be open to receiving new messages from the same cards over and over as these layers reveal themselves to us. And I think this is a beautiful card to talk about that particular aspect of reading tarot. Now, the comment about the connection with the wheel card is really interesting in that this is a card that speaks to phases of the moon. And as you are aware, this is such a beautiful card. The one on the right is the Tarot d'Este. Moonlit. Under the Moonlight, Italy, 1450. We see the moon in different phases. And I have to say that it does influence how I read a card. When I'm looking at a phase of the moon, I am fully aware of its relationship to now. And this is something that I have slowly developed over time, and that is a conscious awareness of where I am presently in the lunar cycle and how the phase of the moon in various cards, not just the moon card, may influence a reading. And this is also a card that really encourages me to address the circle, the cycles, the nature of cycles, and to bring this into awareness with the querent if it's not something that they speak to. While I have this beautiful card on the table, I want to read you something from Helen Fairley's book. And this is in the section where she discusses her research on the star, the sun, and the moon cards, astrology in Renaissance Italy. Astrology permeated many spheres, even the newly emerging science of medicine. Many works were written on iatromathematics, the influence of astrological bodies on medicine. Many diseases were thought to be under the direct control of the stars, for example. Syphilis was thought to have been caused by the conjunction of the 4 great planets in Scorpio, which occurred in 1484. Gaspar Torella, physician to Pope Alexander VI, and Caesar Borgia predicted the disease would go away in 1584 when a different conjunction would occur. Okay. When I read this, I found this so exciting. I wish in a way that we were in a time where such awareness was still prevalent. Let me go back to the bit about the friar. So he spoke out against magic and divination. He accepted that astrology as valid, asserting that it was irresponsible for doctors to treat a patient without reference to the phases of the moon. The Renaissance saw no contradiction between astrology and science. The influence of astrology was all pervasive. And so in these older cards, this is my Jacques Viavi deck. There is, I didn't show you the star card last time. And then here is the moon. There is a powerful connection and respect for astrology and its influence on life. And when I think about where we have drifted with the moon card, and I was just rereading Jodorowsky's little passage on the moon card, it's become so very, very esoteric. And I do love the aspects of this card as it is presented. So this is the Madanier deck, which looks very much like a Waite Smith image. I love that I can relate to all of the water signs in this card, that I may find Cancerian connections. I might, more often than not, speak to part of the story of the Scorpio journey. And it's funny, the last one that will often come to mind is Pisces, even though more contemporarily, this card has been associated with the astrological sign of Pisces. But perhaps as the final sign of the zodiac, there's something about the complexity of this card. Now, I may have addressed this in Top Tarot Trumps, but this is one card, and I was talking about the Marshmallow Marseille. It was the only card that is entirely colored in and filled in. There's something about the complexity of the layers, and I'm sure you've seen quite a few discussions where this card is divided into 3 sections, looking at the moon itself, the scene that is on land, and then the scene that is in the water, and taking those apart in pieces and having a good look at what is represented in the card. And I asked in that discussion, well, why is it this card that is full of scene, full of color? There's no empty spaces. And it's particularly noticeable in that text. If you happen to have it, go pull out that one. I don't really see that in any of the other cards I'm looking at today. But I feel like it's an important observation. So, how can we connect this card as a reminder of the common knowledge that moon phases matter, moon phases influence, that decisions made that when we make decisions in alignment with moon, the phase of the moon, that things will flow much better. 2, the wanderings in darkness and questions of perception and so forth. And I think both are true. That we can navigate this card from a variety of perspectives. And yet, I don't want to lose the simplicity of lunar cycles and the connection to lunar cycles in working with this card. So, have a look at dogs, beasts, the animals that are on the card. And I think this discussion is coming from David, from his work, from his PDF. So one of the things that he says is, in the light of the moon, even if we are working with full moon energy, which clearly the Type 1 Tarot de Marseille are, which could also be a solar eclipse in some cases, but let's just say it's a full moon. It is possible to have evening activity, that it is very bright at night, and yet there is definitely a difference between the full illumination of the moon at night and full illumination of the sun during the day. And when we are in the light of the moon, we have a slightly different perception of things. There's still an essence of darkness about. And so the discussion here is about the nature of the animals, and he also has this brilliant quote. I believe it came from his mother. And I don't have it handy here, but the essence of it was about dogs and wolves. And at dusk, you can't really tell the difference between a wolf and a dog. That in the light of the moon, light of the full moon even, sometimes our mind, our eyes, our sight plays tricks on us. That what we perceive in the light of the moon may not be the same as what we perceive in the light of day. And I believe that there's a gift in that, because it gives us a different perception. And I'm thinking about, I lived in a very wintry town for years, and I had this path that went by my house, and I would often observe wildlife walking up the path away from the house. And sometimes it was a fox of some sort, and sometimes they had big fluffy tails, and I could never really tell what kind of wildlife it was. And it was just a reminder that, and I can see an image so clearly in my mind. The road is covered with snow, and there's no cars about. There was one street light where I lived, and so I could see wildlife as it walked up this path. And I'm not, my point here is that the memory gave me a sense of connection and peace with nature, that indeed wildlife is still here. The wildlife we may not see most of the time comes out at night, and I can read other things into that as well too. And so I think this is an important card, because it's saying something about our imagination, about our connection to all things lunar and watery. And it sort of opens up a space and a connection to, call it femininity, receptivity intuition. And maybe, I'm thinking about the howling of dogs and that sort of stereotype around full moon. Maybe there is a hunger for connection with this powerful energy, a hunger for connection with myth and mystery and the need to not always see things so clearly. Things are not always black and white. And this card is a gift. It's a gift that allows us to blur the lines a little bit. I do have another connection here. So this is from the Vachetta Tarot of the Master. This is the one that was beautifully colored by the founder of Il Meninghello. And we see a portrayal of Diana here. And I think there's there's a great connection here. And the hunt, the aspect of the hunt is also brought in David's chapter as well too. So I'll try to tie that together. Diana, as with this connection between moon and huntress, has a power, a strength. And this calling, this yearning for mythology and mystery and connection to divine feminine energy and our own, the power of our intuition and our imagination is so very needed. It's a moment, it's a glimpse out of the harsh reality of daytime and what we call reality. And I love that the goddess is depicted here. And she is standing tall, holding her bow and arrow. The arrow is in the left hand, the receptive hand. She's the master of her bow. And if you've ever drawn a bow back, you'll know how much strength you need to do that. So in no uncertain terms are we looking at a powerful goddess here. Love that the dog is featured on this card as well too. And we have the crab, the crustacean that's up in the top left corner. There are several discussions about let's not get too hung up on whether it is a crawfish or a crab or the nature of the crustacean. It is a crustacean of some sort, symbolically. And regardless of what it is, connects us to the energy of Cancer. And it brings in mother energy, mother wound energy, longing to connect or to heal mother energy. And I think in my reflections yesterday and today, as I was preparing to share some of this with you, I feel we forget this in interpreting this card today. Jodorowsky takes this, I think, I don't know if it's one step too far, and I can read you in his words, but this is the dogs, the beasts who are actually drinking the mother's milk, drinking from the moon. I don't know if I would go that far in interpreting it. I think I would just rather say it's a yearning. It's a yearning for connection with our intuition, and perhaps this is a card that signals or gives us permission to spend more time with that. Arya says, my favorite TDM moon card is from the New Choice, Tarot de Marseille. Favorite old style moon from medieval Scapini, and favorite modern one from the Dark Mansion. All worn treachery of our eyes in dim light. And perhaps too that can I say that it gives more meaning to how we perceive in the day if we've seen it in the night. We need to have both experiences. Maybe to appreciate how we see it in the daytime, or to see it in a different way. I have a couple other cards on the table. Oh no, sorry, that's the wrong one. I want to look at the Soprafino here, because this is a different perspective. I feel as if we are at home. We are looking from home out to the sea. To the left of the dog is a rose bush. I will zoom in for you rather than holding it up. See if I can do that. Hopefully it's still fairly clear. There's a rose bush to the left of the dog. So I feel like we're in a sort of a manicured garden just outside the front door of the home. And I think it's funny that the way that the crustacean is on the plate there, I feel it's, I don't know, it's odd because it looks like, not that that is the food for the dog, but it's symbolic of the meal that perhaps is being consumed by the humans inside the house. I was staring at it and not quite sure what to make of that. The crustacean making its way toward the house? No, not so much. But it's a really beautiful card. And even the full moon itself is partially covered by clouds. I mean, how many times a year in 13 full moons do we get that beautiful light of the full moon with no obscurity? You know, it's not very often that happens, at least where I live. Yeah. Okay, so a couple other things. And maybe you can come back and leave me a comment later after some observation of your own cards. And that's about the water droplets. They move in, they come in different shapes, different directions. Let's just call them droplets. They may not be water droplets. They could be energy from the sun. And I wonder, and they're different. So if you have a tower card, notice in a tower card, it is completely circular. So in a tower card, we see circular balls, perhaps, right, an exploded meteor, who knows. And then in these ones, we have what appears like a water drop shape. And sometimes it is moving from the moon, and sometimes it looks like it's moving towards the moon. I think this might catch my eye. And when I look at the Dodal Tarot, which is the one on the right side of the screen here, it feels like a powerful radiation of the energy, of the lunar energy. That we are receiving, even I would go as far as to say a blessing from the moon. And I pause because I'm fully aware, like the rest of you, that the only reason we see the full moon is because of the sun, and that the sun is always there. So this is a really, for me, this is something I sit with often. You know, we see the full moon because of, we never see the moon without the sun. Yet we can see the sun without the moon. So this is a different, I don't know what I want to make of this, but it's significant, I feel. So let me know if you have thoughts on this. The front-facing circular moon also, as I mentioned before, feels different than when we're looking at a different phase of the moon, whether we're seeing a crescent moon early in its development, or we are seeing a phase just before the full moon, or even after the full moon. But remember, all of these cards are drawn from a North American perspective. So the waning and waxing phases should be consistent across the decks, assuming that artists are aware of which way waning and waxing energy moves. So, I don't know. For me, to speak to the energy of the phase of the moon comes first, and then I'm going to have a look at perhaps a clouded perception that is coming forth in the reading that the querent is not seeing. You know, sort of that kind of order feels important. Aria offers aspirations, wishes. You know, that sounds a lot like me. When I'm out walking in the light of the full moon, it's I talk completely. Like I pray, I chat, often asking and seeking guidance and support. But notice how in the Jacques Villa, this one, right, the droplets are in a different direction from the Dodal. And these are relatively similar time period. Oh, well, I don't know. It varies. It varies. Okay. On any other cards I have here, there is one other piece that I would love to hear your response on. I don't have Jodorowsky's deck on the table, but I did see it in the Madon. Oh my goodness! I need to look at the word. Madenier. All right, so here. If you look in the right claw, there is something in the right claw. Jodorowsky colors it, and I believe says it's a blue ball. And for me, this helps to build the connection to Scorpio. That in the scorpionic phase, and here I'm connecting Scorpio to the crustacean, that we dive deep into the waters, searching for, longing for connection, looking for our gold, our treasure, something deep in the dark, murky waters. And through that journey, eventually we do emerge with the gold, and often only to release it. But I find it interesting that he specifically brings in that detail that he sees in the crawfish hand from the conver deck. And he says, we can view the crustacean either as immersed in the deepest depths of water or, to the contrary, swimming on top of it. In both cases, it encourages us to establish contact with intuition, this buried treasure we all carry. We can also see that it is also carrying two balls like offerings in its pincers. The ego has something to offer in the spiritual work. And so in any given reading, I'm not going to address all of these things. I'm going to allow what needs to arise, and build my story, build my reading from the symbol that feels the most relevant. Oh, that's funny. Crawdads. Oh, why is that not showing? There we go. Crawdads that go bump in the night. I appreciate some of the researchers and the way that they challenge contemporary interpretations of cards. And one of them is the discussion of the buildings, the towers that are in the card. And where do they come from? What is the scenery? And the lack of explanation around that. Because, of course, these don't appear in the Visconti Sforza decks, the earlier decks at all. These came in into the Tarot de Marseille. So is it meaningful background scenery? And I'm fully aware of what the representation is in contemporary decks, but I have yet to see a discussion in one of the more historical Tarot de Marseille books clearly answering what these towers represent in the moon card. And of course, as tarot readers, we can find meaning with anything. But let me know if you actually have a historical reference that discusses the towers that are on the side of the moon card. And maybe I do as well too. I just haven't perused through all of my books for today. Yeah. So please join in the conversation, and I will be sure to respond to your comments. Let me know what your favorite older historical moon cards are, and I'll be back next week with the sun, and maybe we can compare. I'll compare some sun and moon cards and see if I have any more insights from some of these well-researched books that I've been looking at. Have a lovely rest of your day, and thank you so much for being here. Take good care. Namaste.